Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Okay, look, man. We get it. Gervonta Davis, he's involved. A little funky situation. More and more facts are coming out. He's providing images. Looks like there may be some culpability on both parts, the woman and himself. Overall, not good. Toxic situation. Just overall bad. But I expect for YouTubers, right? Let me close this door real quick. Sorry, just had to close the door. I expect for these YouTubers and content creators to take that, man, and run with it. I expect them to lie. You know, it's like seasoning meat to get ready to put on the grill. You know, you add your little seasoning to it, man, and say this is the secret recipe to make something taste good, right? And that's what these content creators do when they get something like that about an athlete. They kind of add their own little seasoning to it. This is our secret recipe, and they push some crap out to the world, and for the most part, it's not all true, right? But when you see guys like this fella, Chris Mannix, right? He is, in the Conor McGregor voice, little weasel. He is a weasel, right? Come on. He's over on DAZN. He's making money. He talks about boxing. Has no damn clue, in my opinion. He argues with Sergio Mora about boxing. Whether you think Sergio Mora was an elite fighter or not, the man was a champion. The man could fight. He won the contender. You know, he got a belt. He gave, what's his name, Daniel Jacobs all he could handle when Jacobs was in his prime. So a guy like Chris Mannix obviously doesn't know how to listen a whole lot and talk very little. He doesn't know how to shut up. So he goes and he writes an article about, well, basically he took Gervonta Davis' situation and decided to write an article about it. And he talked about all kind of stuff in this article, talking about far too long, the sports looked the other way on serious issues concerning abuse against women at the hands of his biggest stars. Now, this guy is talking about boxing. He says it needs to stop now. Okay? When a boxer puts his hands on women, we do nothing. Put his hands on men, then we cheer. Now, I don't quite agree with that, man. You know, when you have something going on out there, I'm just not sure that he says, when he's saying everyone in the boxing community just kind of condones domestic violence or men beating on women. That's not true. That's not true. Okay? But he's sitting here saying that everyone is just giving Gervonta Davis a pass, and that's not the case. If you go and look at a lot of these YouTube channels, you look at Twitter, you look at the different Instagram, and you look at what's going on right now. Who the hell is giving Gervonta Davis a pass? There's a majority of people are eating him alive. Now, there are some that are like, hey, let's wait, get all the facts, which is the right thing to do. But it looks funky. The whole situation doesn't look good. But, you know, it's only right to sit back and let's wait and see. But for this guy to go out here and say that everyone, for the most part, is giving Gervonta Davis an attaboy for being in another domestic dispute and, you know, putting his hands on a female, that's just not accurate. And I want to say right now, man, I don't think anybody, male or female, should be putting their hands on each other. So let's just get that out the way. But at the same time, I don't think a guy like Chris Mannix should go use his platform and write an article just basically taking an opportunity to take a dig at Tank Davis without having all the facts, and to go and bring up a bunch of crap from the past with different athletes to just, I guess, promote his podcast and to promote his little website. I just don't think that's cool. But it's his right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's a journalist, and they're not always going to say the things that you want to hear. So you got to respect that. But I just think it's corny, okay? So he goes on to say the latest example of boxing ugly indifference is a repeat offender. And he's talking about Gervonta Davis, right? So he calls Gervonta Davis a repeat offender. Now, I'm not saying he was involved in something before. So if you want to call him that, that's fine. But words matter, right? Words matter. He was charged with one count of battery to cause bodily harm, a misdemeanor domestic violence charge in Florida. We talked about that already. He goes on to talk about hitting the woman supposedly with a closed hand slap. A lot of people are saying is, how the hell do you hit somebody with a closed hand slap, right? It caused a small abrasion on the inside of her upper lip on the right side of her mouth, right? So he goes on to talk about the phone call and talking about how the lady was saying he's going to kill me. He talks about Davis, deleting Instagram posts, denying the physical assault. And then he goes on to talk about how this isn't Davis' first offense. Talks about in 2020, the whole video where he grabbed his ex-girlfriend, dragging her out of a basketball game. And then he says arrested again later that year after he blew the red light and drove his Lamborghini into another car. Now, you see, this is the crap that has Gervonta Davis frustrated. Because just when you're trying to get beyond mistakes you've made, and hey, it's Gervonta Davis, it's kind of his fault now, because if he didn't get himself into trouble in the past, we wouldn't be talking about these things. So it's not like Mannix is just making stuff up, but it's giving a weasel like him an opportunity to push negativity out and say things about you and kind of put his own spin on it to just put you in an even worse space. So a guy like Chris Mannix isn't trying to help him at all. He's trying to help himself by putting out an article because he himself wants to be seen as brave and as a real dog and a guy who'll get the story and a journalist who remains on the edge. It's all crap, in my opinion. And I really think it's foul that, but what's going to happen to bring up the whole issue, with the pregnant girl inside the vehicle, which I already talked about that in other videos. That's going to be a tough one for Gervonta Davis. But he goes on here and he talks about Mike Tyson, talking about the 2012 incident. He talks about, the 2012 was Floyd Mayweather. He talks about Mayweather going to jail. He talks about Broner being arrested several times for assault. Back in 2019, an attack on a woman at a Cleveland nightclub. Like this guy, I'll tell you what, if you want to put together a video or something to break down Gervonta Davis, Adrian Broner, Mike Tyson, and different boxers, especially from other sports, pull up this guy's article. He did his homework, didn't he? He started talking about other sports as well. The 1995, this man went all the way back to 1995. Bengals lineman Dan Wilkinson pleaded no contest to hitting his pregnant wife in the stomach. Jason Kidd, how he pleaded no contest to spousal abuse in 2001. And he says the only NBA response was for the Nets to trade Kidd to Phoenix. Kobe Bryant was never convicted of sexual assault. This idiot even brought Kobe Bryant's name into it. But the idea that Bryant would be allowed to parachute in and out of Colorado for a trial, as he did during the 03-04 season, seems wild today. So obviously no one's off limits for a guy like this weasel, because he even talked about the crap with Kobe Bryant. So he talked about Deshaun Watson, criminally charged for his alleged misconduct with more than two dozen women during massage sessions. I mean, he talked about all kind of stuff, man. And I'll let you guys, if you want, you can go read the article. It's on www.si.com. And he says, why do the sport power brokers often respond to violence against women with the collective shrug? Money, obviously, when Davis fights, he rakes in a 7-figure gate, generates 6-figure pay-per-view buys, puts cash in the pockets of every promoter, manager, and network that works with him. He says there's no accountability from Al Heyman. See, he's throwing all kinds of names out here. And then he's talking about how Hector Luis Garcia should pull out the fight. We all know Hector Luis Garcia not pulling out no damn tank fight. just crazy, man. He even goes on here and says, boxing's indifference towards the treatment of women comes at a time when it should be courting them. Women's boxing took off in 2022. Katie Taylor's title against Serrano was the best fight of the year. And then, you have Baumgartner, Clarissa Shields, Savannah Marshall, Michaela Mayer. And he's right. They did good. Women's boxing, for the most part, they carried the year, if you ask me. But it just has nothing to do with it. Then he even brings up Rolly Romero stuff, man. It talks about the brakes being slammed on that fight between him and Tank because Rolly being accused of sexual assault. But, why talk about that when it came back and all that stuff charges were dropped? And he says the major U.S. sports leagues have deemed violence against women worthy of stiff penalties. Boxing should do the same. I don't quite disagree with that statement. But everything else he put in here, I think it's for shock value. And some people may disagree with me. And again, I'm saying I'm not condoning. I don't condone violence anyway. But men, being aggressive towards women, hitting on women, that's not cool. But it's not cool for anyone. Even for women put their hand on a man either. That shit's not all right. But what's really awful is this weasel coming out here and peeling scabs on all kind of issues and all kind of situations that took place from back in 1995 all the way to today. He's not doing any justice to anybody by writing this damn articles. What he's doing, if anyone was to come across it, is maybe pulling the scabs back and exposing the injuries that were there. And I just don't think people need to be revisiting all that crap. So anyway, I'm just surprised that he even did that, man, because, to be quite frank, when this fool is there commentating, I can't stand listening to him anyway. I'm like, he has no clue. And to be sitting there, man, and challenging boxers and trying to tell them about boxing, I get it. Some guys spend a lot of time around the sport. They never put their gloves on. So there are some things that they can intelligently talk to just from being around the sport and watching it. But to come now and argue with a guy like Sergio Moro who's been in the ring, and for this fool to say, no, that's not true, that's not how this goes, that's not how that goes. I mean, a complete clown. But Sergio Moro holds his ground. He holds his ground and puts him in place. But this guy is just proven, man, to be someone that, hey, for me, I don't want to hear this guy no more, man. This article that he wrote is just a disgrace. An absolute disgrace. But the one thing I will say is, look, that if guys, athletes are out here getting away with mistreating women and beating on women and, like we seen the crap stuff in the elevator, one of those athletes, look, there should be stiff penalties. There should be stiff penalties, right? Because I do believe that as an athlete, you're representing a brand. And whoever's brand you're representing, there should be zero tolerance for that. Now, one thing I was surprised, right? Since this cornball, Chris Mannix, wants to put an article out, why didn't he talk about Felix Verdejo? Now, that shit is madness. But he didn't say nothing about Felix Verdejo. And I'm not saying that I want to even read about that. That's horrible. But no, he I guess, inadvertently omitted that out. And that's something that's still ongoing. And Verdejo pleaded not guilty. So, again, Chris Mannix, I have no respect for this guy. But I definitely think there should be stiff penalties if guys are out here doing wrong, especially just, being mean and aggressive and hurting women. Like, that is just not okay. But that being said, y'all leave your comments below. Let me know your 2 cents. And as always, I'm in the breeze.